really talked a lot about. It's always about reading instruction. And then a couple years ago, I started really doing more research on if I'm going to encourage teachers to do this, I have to tell them why it's important. And so I'm excited just to do a little something different. And I felt like January is the perfect time to really talk about engagement because our kids are going to come back and they're going to be one or two things. They're going to be really pumped up and excited, or they're just going to be like sloths because they've not had a normal routine. So I felt like this engagement piece was really important for this time of year. So let me share my screen. All right. So when I visited New York um, this fall, one thing that the principal always said was hearts up, minds up. And I was like, that just makes, like she said it every day on the announcements. And then that made me think like hands up, minds up, because when we're moving our hands and we're keeping our kids engaged, then they are learning. And so I visited a classroom here in my district at the beginning of the year, and I told the teacher, I said, your kids have to have an opportunity to respond about 3 times a minute because that is how their brains are working right now. They are so overstimulated and they're so used to being stimulated that if we don't teach like our hair is on fire, they're not going to pay attention. And so um, it's something that I think we're seeing more and more of. We're having to really engage students and um, because we're competing with screens, right? We're competing with that constant stimulation. Like just last night, we were watching the football game and there was a little skip button down on the bottom of the screen. And my son was like, hit the skip button, but he didn't read the part that said, skip the ad for a peaceful, I don't know, something. And it was like they're not used to waiting. They're not used to having this time that they have to wait on things like commercials, even because they don't even know what commercials are these days, right? So they never have to be patient. So we are all about Anita Archer, and this is kind of where our opportunities to respond come. How many of you have read her books and followed her work? Anyone? She is an older lady with lots of spunk. And so you probably will see lots of archerisms throughout our session today. But she says the more students respond, the more students learn. So we've talked about a lot in the science of reading. We hear a lot about the simple view of reading. And that's basically like decoding times comprehension equals successful reading, right? But what we don't talk a lot about and what we don't hear a lot about is this idea of the active view of reading. And it adds some essential ingredients that we observe daily. We know that these are the things that our kids need. And it just adds a little bit more. So when you think about the simple view of reading, these are things that it didn't really talk about, but we as teachers in the classroom know that we need to incorporate into our daily routines. So we think about that. We think about automaticity, attention, executive function, motivation, engagement, and working memory. So just give me a thumbs up if you hear a lot about executive functioning these days. Yeah, we attend the IEP meetings and we hear a lot about executive functioning. So when we look at this and we think about all that happens in the reading process, right here basically is your simple view of reading, your word recognition, your language comprehension. This fluency vocabulary knowledge kind of bridges it all together and we have successful readers. But if you look at this, what you see first is this active self-regulation piece, which most of you on here teach kindergarten, so you know how important that is. But we have to think about things like motivation and engagement. We have to think about things like executive functioning. So we can have this beautiful lesson that is fully aligned to the research. But if we aren't engaging our kids, they're not going to be active in that process. So attention, when we think about attention, when we have the opportunity for this frequent responding, it pulls students back to the task and it keeps their attention really anchored on the learning that we're teaching them. We think about working memory. We know that if they're saying it and they're writing it, it helps them to hold that in their working memory. So they need lots of opportunities to rehearse. Like we talk about dictation, we talk about how they have to say that sentence multiple times before we can expect them to hold it long enough to be able to write it. And we want them to be able to do that because we don't want information to fade. We want them to be active in that process. So executive functioning, so predictable response routines that build that task initiation, self-monitoring, and cognitive shifting. So what I mean by that is if we have predictable routines and responses in our room and students know what is coming, I'm going to share some of those with you today, we can kind of reduce the irritability that we often see because our kids can't hold on to all the things that we're asking them to do. And motivation, I talk a lot about motivation. I talk about those engagement kits that we use all the time, ways that we can engage students in whole group and in small group, and how it can be something as simple as an eraser that goes with the season. You know, anything that we can do to motivate our kids to want to learn is going to benefit us because if they aren't motivated, they aren't paying attention and they aren't learning. And so we want to make sure that we are building that into our lesson as well. And again, engagement, if they're not engaged, then they're not learning. So we can't disengage students when they're actively responding every 10 to 20 seconds. So if I go back to that second grade teacher, when I said they need an opportunity to respond at least 3 times a minute, that falls right in with this 10 to 20 seconds. But I think what happens is when we look at that, we think, we literally have to teach with our hair on fire if we're going to have them actively engaged every 10 to 20 seconds. So I'm hoping that today I can share some tips and tricks with you to make it not feel as daunting. And actually, the more you do it, the more routine you build and the consistency you build within your classroom, the more fun it is for you as well. So OTR is the instructional delivery that makes the active view of reading work in real classrooms. So it protects that cognitive load piece, it increases learning, and it decreases those behavior challenges that we deal with. So Anita Archer says the number one way to increase learning and decrease behaviors is through this opportunity to respond. She says success breeds motivation. So when kids feel successful, then they automatically feel motivated. So when we're thinking about opportunities to respond, it has to be at a brisk pace. Every student has to be responding. They have to have high engagement, clear routines, and the students are the ones doing the work. So if we're doing the work, we're doing the learning. So whoever's doing the work and whoever's doing the responding, those are the people that are doing the learning. So it doesn't require a lot of prep or extra materials. So we do have lots of things that we use. I have my engagement kit here. I have all the things that I use. Yes, this is all prep that we have done, but it doesn't have to be that way. We just kind of have to really think through our daily routine and where we can kind of plug some of these things in for our students. So more response equals more learning, more response equals fewer behaviors, higher confidence, and faster skill acquisition. So when we especially have seen such growth in our students, how many of you guys use the whole group phonics slides? If you use those, so that's one thing that is different for us and it's different for everyone. Some states do not require that you teach phonics at your grade level. You only have to meet your students where they are in small group. In our district, we have to teach the standards that the state of Virginia holds for us. So if it says that our students have to know vowel teams in first grade, we have to teach vowel teams in first grade, whether they are ready for it or not, which can be tricky. And that's kind of where those whole group slides came in. But what we found is we lay out our pacing for the year based on our scope and sequence. So we look at what our standards are, we lay that whole group piece out for the year. So by the time we hit March, we're hitting vowel teams. And so we just in second grade back in October, we're working through CBCE patterns. And so these phonics slides, we really nailed them down to this is what we do on Monday, this is what we do on Tuesday. And then we've also built in these opportunities to respond for students. And what we found is when we did our progress monitoring, all of our second graders like completely skipped CVCE on their small group pacing because they got it in whole group. And that's really something to think about because those teachers were really teaching with high engagement those phonics slides for those students who weren't even there, who weren't even ready for CVCE to be able to pick up that content and then be able to perform that well with the progress monitoring. So just building in little routines is really, really important. So any moment where students actively respond during instruction is an opportunity to respond. So think of it like this. There are verbal responses, written responses, physical responses, and partner responses. I'm going to kind of walk you through ways that we can add these in. I'm not sure my picture didn't show up there. Let's see. Okay. So when we think about phonics, for example, when we think about this cumulative review piece, there's so many different things that we can do to just help them stay focused during this part of instruction. So when we think about our sound drills and we think about visual drills, one thing that you can do is create motions for every single sound that you have. So for example, when we say the B sound, we put our finger here and we say B, because I've taught my students that any sound that is a pop sound or a stop sound, we put our fingers here to remind us that it is a pop sound. So we say B. When we do X, we cross our fingers like our hands like this and we say X. So we put it together. X. When we do woo, we pretend that there's wind blowing, so we say woo. So just sitting down and really thinking about how you can engage them. So if I have a letter on the screen, the expectation is that every single student in the room is doing the motion and the sound for that visual drill. So that reduces the rolling on the carpet or not paying attention or talking to your friends because everyone is engaged. The same thing with phonemic awareness. I've shared with you guys, but one thing that we decided school-wide is how are we going to blend orally and segment orally. So when we blend, the students know that if I'm blending a word for a phonemic awareness warm-up, I'm going to hold my hands on my shoulders here, and I'm going to say the word is at. And when I go like this, I release it to everyone and I say, everyone, and they all say cat. So that gives an opportunity for processing to think about what the word is, and then everyone responds at the same time. When we do phoneme segmentation orally, we decided there's so many things, and then Heggerty kind of like muddied the waters too, because you can like do this and you can like chop, and there are all these different things that you can do for phonemic awareness. But we decided as a school, we're going to do one thing for segmentation, and it's simple. It's one hand, one fist. So the word is dog, and then we'll say everyone, and they say d, g, dog, and they have to clap it together to blend it back together. So that's what we use in every single situation when we are orally blending and segmenting across the board, whether it's intervention, special ed, or within our classroom. Blending drills, that's another thing that is really gives an opportunity for all students to respond. If we have blending drills on our blending board or we have them on the active board, what we can do is we can say everyone, and then we can have them each say the sounds with us. So instead of having students take turns saying t, ah, g, and then I would go to Erica, okay, Erica, you do this word. It's just the expectation that when we do a blending drill, everyone is saying, everyone is responding, everyone is actively engaged. Another thing that we have really been working on is writing. And so that's something that we really tackled this year. And we know that with writing starts with oral language. And so if our kids can't say a sentence and they can't communicate what they're thinking, they're not going to be able to write it down on paper. And so these slides are in the hub for you guys. But what we did with this is the first part of our sentence writing in kindergarten and first grade. And so the very first thing that we have students do is look at the picture. And we try to pick funny pictures because that's what's going to keep kids engaged. And so they have to look at the picture to think about what's happening. And during this think piece, especially in kindergarten, we started really doing some think alouds for them. And we started pointing out the obvious. And we pointed out the obvious because then when we asked them to turn and talk, they were having to really think about other things that could have happened. And so I might say, look at this picture. I see red shoes. It looks like he stepped in gum. And I'm having this think aloud conversation. And then I have them stop and think. And then we started incorporating turn and talk. Now, turn and talk can get really crazy if we don't have a routine in place for our students. So the routine for turn and talk is number one, we have either we have assigned seats on the carpet for students, or they know that their right shoulder partner is going to be their partner. And so what we'll say is, okay, we're going to look. I have thought aloud for them. And now I'm going to say, your turn to think. They're going to think quietly. And then I'm going to say, turn and talk. And so when I say turn and talk, they take their bodies, they face, and we've trained them that they are knee to knee. So both their knees are touching, hands are in their lap, eyes are looking. So we talk about what it's like, because here's another thing. Kids don't really understand anymore how to carry on a conversation. They don't talk to each other. They're not talked to. And so having to walk through this takes a little bit of time. It took us about a week to get them to really understand what it means to turn and talk. So what it means to turn and talk is you're knee to knee, your hands are in your lap, eyes are looking, you are taking turns talking. And so we're not going to say, what do you think happened? I see gum, right? Like that's not a conversation that we're going to have. We're going to talk about, what do you think happened? Where is he? Maybe he's in the airport. Maybe he was running to his flight and he stepped in gum, and having these conversations. And then as the teacher, we go around and we listen and we model what that good conversation looks like. So we might ask a question, we might have them answer a question, and we might have them have a conversation. So you don't have to just do this with writing, but this is one thing that we've really started incorporating that has really helped our students. And then after they're finished, we'll say, we keep it very simple. We'll say, partners ready? And they'll say yes. And as they say yes, they turn back around and they face the front of the room where the board is. And then we take suggestions and we would model write a sentence for them. Another turn and talk is to just talk about vocabulary. So if I've introduced the word investigate and we've talked about it and I've told them what it means, then as part of a review portion during my background knowledge portion of my lesson, I might say the word is investigate. I have my hands here. I say the word is investigate. What's the word? Everyone says investigate. What's the word? Investigate. Okay, turn and tell your partner what it means. So now they've got the partner talk down, they turn and they're talking about what investigate means. So that's everyone engaged, and that's them peer to peer having conversations. So when we think about, and this video is in the hub if you want to go and watch it, but when we think about dictation, for example, one thing that teachers really struggle with is not small group dictation. It's what do I do in a whole group when I'm having my students work through this dictation process. And so it looks a little bit different for whole group, and that's okay. So what we have students do for whole group is we go word by word by word with them. So we'll say the sentence, we'll tap the sentence. I've told you guys how we like raise the roof, we clap out the sentence. We're working on that working memory piece. So we might say the sentence is, mom gets the bag. And so if that's the sentence, we're going to say, all right, elbows up. So this is our procedure. We put one hand underneath our elbow and we put our fist up like this. And we'll say, mom gets the bag. Mom gets the bag. So everyone's counting with me. How many words in our sentence? 4. And so then we'll say, okay, what's the first word in our sentence? Everyone, mom. Let's tap out the word mom. So now we're going to tap out mom. Everyone write the word mom and then pencils down. So everyone writes the word mom. I write the word mom. We put the pencil down. And then we do that same process all the way through for dictation. Seems like it would take forever. Seems like it's a lot of steps, but it's really not once your students get in the routine because they know their pencils down. And I'll say elbows up. What was our sentence? Mom gets the bag. What was our first word? What's our next word? Gets. Everyone tap it out. Are you ready? Gets. Let's write the word. Gets, right? Pencils down. And so we go through that full process. and everyone is engaged. Everyone has their pencils up at the same time. They have their pencils down at the same time. There's no room for distraction. And we have to think about small group as well, because as much as we do all of these things for our kids as a whole group, we can actually give students opportunities to respond in small group. And so a big thing for small group is when we get to that application piece um, for reading, right? For our decodable text. And one thing that I see a lot of teachers still do, and I'm not shaming anyone because I did it too, is I have students take turns reading. And I have them take turns reading because I want to be able to hear what every student, I want to make sure that they are able to apply the skills that I've just taught them. But what we want to make the shift is we want to make that shift to stagger reading. So if I have 4 students in front of me for small group, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have I have Missy, Jessica, Monica, Erica, Lori, all at my small group table. I will stagger read. So if Missy is sitting directly to my left, I'm going to point to the book and I'm going to have Missy start whisper reading. I'm going to skip over Jessica and I'm going to go to Erica and I'm going to say, Erica, you may start whisper reading. I'm going to skip over Erica and I'm going to go to Monica and I'm going to say, I'm going to skip over Monica and I'm going to go to Lori. I'm going to say, Lori, you are going to start whisper reading. And then I'm going to work my way back around the table so that everyone is reading, but Erica and Missy can't be on the same page and listening to each other read because they're at different parts in the book. And then that allows me as the teacher to lean in and listen to students read individually. So everyone's responding. No one's sitting at my small group table waiting to read. They're all reading and I'm leaning in and I'm listening. So something else that's really important that we need to think about are just the routines. When we think back to that active view of reading, something that is really important is having procedures and routines in our classroom. And so when we think about small group, what you see on the screen here is our word mapping, one of our word mapping routines. And so I'm going to play the video again, and I just want you to watch what they do when they start writing and when they finish writing. So this is a system, right? They all, where we have the whiteboard, we have the Poppet, we have the marker, and then or the eraser, and then where does the marker go? On top of, yeah. And so you think that's not something that's really important, but if you are going to pull in engagement tools in your classroom, there has to be a system for how you do it. And so this took a little bit of time in my small group to teach them, but now when I hand out that engagement kit, they know what they need to get out of it. They know the placement of where everything goes and they know where their marker goes. So it goes like this. They have to pull out their marker, they pull off the lid goes on the back of the marker rests on the eraser. And so when we would go through and we would practice, we weren't actually writing any words. I would have them set up the placement of how I wanted it to be. I would have them pick up their marker, pretend to write, and I would say, all done. And they would put their marker down and I would say, reset. And they would say, you bet. So that's how we get them focused. So they can't say you bet until they have had everything ready to go. So when we think about routines, think through your routines, just like with your eliminating round robin reading. Think through how are you going to do word mapping? Where is the placement of the resources and what is your expectation for them? Here's another video of working through word mapping, but this student she struggled a little bit with, this is actually one of my tutoring kiddos. She struggled a little bit with knowing what vowel to use. So you can notice the placement is she has the vowel strip, she has the chip, and what she's working on is she is working on making sure that she knows the vowel before she writes the word. Blending lines, when we think about our blending lines and we have them working through reading words, there has to be a system for that too. Now, we think about executive functioning, we think about the ability to pay attention to what we're asking you to do. And if we're stagger reading, we have 5 kids, how do we make sure that they're all focusing? Well, this little guy really struggled to be able to um, even track print. He was really struggling. So I just gave him a little chip and it made all the difference. He had something that he had to focus on and he could highlight those sounds. Here's another routine that works. I do this a lot with my students and I'll train teachers to do this as you're getting the rest of your kids settled. So kindergarten teachers, this could be a sound strip, right? How many times can you get through the sound strip before the stand timer goes off? And so I'll put whatever we've previously worked on in the word list on the table, and then I'll give them a timer. And so while I'm getting everyone settled, making sure everyone's in the correct center where they're supposed to be, they have a task and they have something that they can be doing that is purposeful. And so they get the stand timer and they know they have to see how many times they can read through the word list or the sound list before the stand timer goes off. And it keeps them engaged and part of the process. When we think about our literacy stations and we think about how can we incorporate this opportunities to respond within literacy stations, it gets a little bit tricky because some classrooms, and you guys know from year to year, some kids can handle literacy stations and some cannot. I've had classes where I can sit for a full 45 minutes, run my small groups, and I don't hear a peep. I've had years where I've had to do a 15-minute small group, do something else, do another 15-minute small group, do something as a whole group activity because they can't sit and self-regulate for that long. And so every year is different. But if you can teach something like partner reading in your classroom and you can model that and take the time to do this, this was a first grade teacher 2 years ago, and her kiddos really struggled during independent time. And so what we did is we took about a week and we modeled what that looked like. And we walked around and we showed them this is what it looks like, this is not what it looks like. And so then they were able to, during small group time, they were able to work together as partners and read whatever it was that we were asking them to read. And then just back to those hand motions, when we think about opportunities to respond, we can have them just like I talked about phoneme segmentation, and that's the routine that we use for oral segmentation. We can also use that same process because they already know it. We can use that for sounding out words. So, one thing that we have students do always and forever if we are mapping sounds is they have to tap it just like we would do for segmentation and blend it back together. When we're doing syllables, we call those our big hands. And so if we are trying to get students to read a word, let's say the word is pumpkin, they put their big hands out like this and they flip them over. So if the word is pumpkin, it's pumpkin, and they have to flip it over. So we'll say again, pumpkin. What's the word? Pumpkin, pumpkin. And so that's just another way that we're making sure everyone is engaged and focused. And then call and respond. We hear a lot about those. And sometimes I think, I don't know if you're like me, but I will just get caught up in the like 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, or I'll clap and they have to repeat it. And sometimes the more students hear that, especially from class to class to class, the more they just start to tune it out. So coming up with fresh call and responds that are unique to your classroom will help get everybody centered and back together, especially when you're doing things like turn and talk. So if we are doing a turn and talk at our desks and I need to get everyone's attention, sometimes if I say 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, I get half the class response because that's something that's really popular. So what I will do is try to come up with things that would be unique to the classroom. And one thing that we've done this year that kids love is hey, hey. So I will say hey, hey, and the kids will clap twice. So they'll go 1, 2, they'll clap twice, and then they both hands down on their desk. So it goes like this. Hey, hey. And so both hands are flat on their desk and their eyes look at us. And that's something they like because when do they get to slam on their desk, right? It's not out of control. It's one slap on the desk, but it gets their attention and they focus. So we often say, if you can hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, clap 3 times. If you can hear me, clap 4 times. So I will start it that way. I'll say, if you can hear me, clap once. I'll say, if you can hear me, clap twice. And then I'll say, if you can see me, clap, and I'll hold up my fingers because that ensures that they are looking right at me and starting to focus. And then things like if you are doing a whole group activity and they all have their Elkonin maps out and you want them to reset, there's a lot that goes into having to reset an Elkonin box. They have to erase the word they wrote. They have to move their chips down. They have to put their eraser on the top and their marker on top of that. So there are a lot of different steps for them to have to go through to be able to do that. So once you have trained them, then you say reset and they say you bet. And that means that their board and their space is reset for the next activity. And so when we think about getting their attention, if you're teaching a new vocabulary word, or you are teaching a new phonics skill, or you are introducing a new character, sometimes just building that anticipation and building that excitement through things like drum rolls. So if you're unlocking a sound on your sound ball, these are things that get kids excited to learn, but also like builds that anticipation for them. And when kids are anticipating something or they're waiting for you to give them, that new vocabulary word, if you've built that anticipation, then they're all going to be hooked right on you and they're going to be focused. Okay. So I've gone through a lot of different call and responses. We've talked about ways that we can actively engage, and I've left about 10 minutes because one thing that I love about this community is that I always share, but what really happens and where the magic happens is when you guys share things that you're doing in your classroom, because I think all of you, I get emails all the time about how you just appreciate having the time to share and talk to each other. So I want to pause for a minute. I want to see if you have any questions about opportunities to respond. And then I want to talk about ways that you engage students in your classroom and ways that you might try new things that you might try as we go into the new year. So I'm going to stop my share and I'm going to leave a few minutes for questions, and then I'm going to leave some time for a conversation. Okay. Any questions?
No, I just want you to make a whole list of those things for me.
I can do that. I can even share I can share the slides with you guys too, so that you have.
Well, and also when I go back, I want to have, basically we're starting all over when we go back. So I can have some teaching moments on setting these new routines and expectations. Um, so if you happen to have slides for those too.
Yes,
If you
yes.
give me
So expectation slides, and then I'll put a list of all of these. I'll kind of lay them out for you.
And then you'll send them to all of us?
Yeah, I'll just put them in the hub, but I can send them out in an email too.
Yeah.
You're the best.
Yeah, I can do that. That's not a problem.
I spent most of the time trying to figure out how to dual screen so I could see what you were talking about and
Oh,
see you at the same time. And I am not a Zoom expert, so
that's okay. The recording will go up in the hub. So
okay.
you go back and you'll be able to see like the split screen too.
Okay.
And watch it.
I like the idea of the turn and talk, and I need to assign carpet spots this
Mhm.
semester because, it's start working with them picking their own spots. But one thing I did do last year that I need to incorporate is when they're done turning talking, I always say, turn to Miss Missy, 1, 2, 3, and they turn towards me and they all say, booyah, and they like that.
I love that.
Yeah,
That's great. And they're all like they all want to be part of the booyah, right? So they're gonna turn so
yeah,
they can do it too. That's what
yeah.
it's
So that's
yeah.
my tip for today.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, the turn and talk assign I have teachers that assign carpet spots and I have teachers that don't. And what I like about the ones that assign it is that it's very thoughtful and very purposeful. So when we think about like students who have English as a second language, sometimes they pair them up with someone who speaks Spanish and sometimes they don't. And we'll put like a third person in to kind of be that. So it's just like really thinking through your class and what works for you. Yeah.
I think I need a bigger carpet because my kids don't all fit on one carpet. So,
That is a
I mean,
problem. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Because you guys probably have big classrooms, don't you?
I mean, I've got 21 kids and I've got this map carpet and they all want to sit on one specific state or whatever. And then we get in debates about that. So I think I just need a new carpet.
Yeah. Yeah.
How often do you think you should switch up the partners?
I think it really depends on your kids and how they respond. So, um, I mean, I don't know how often my teachers switch them up. I haven't asked them that. But in my mind, it would be if they start being silly or they start not really taking it seriously, then it's time to
Okay.
switch them up. And when you switch partners, my suggestion would be to spend time going over those expectations again. This is what it looks like to work with a partner. This is what it looks like knee to knee. Like go over those routines one more time when you switch the partners up.
Okay, so one more thing. Going back usually after break, like I like to have all like the the New Year's stuff and this activity and the balloon drop and like we're cutting the fluff this year and we're just gonna get back to normal scheduling and maybe reading a New Year's Eve, New Year's Day book. But yeah, that's gonna be different for me this year because I'm usually like spend so much time on all these fun New Year's resolutions and little vision boards but I'm cutting the fluff this year, Amy. We're getting right back into it.
That's right. But you can cut the fluff and still have the fun,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Booyah.
Booyah. Yeah. So I
This
don't know.
is
I feel like this is something that you were gonna see more of is this active view of reading and how we're really because behaviors aren't getting any better for sure, you know.
And certain kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like the specific choosing the partners, choosing the spots. I just need a bigger carpet.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I have teachers in so in the school that I'm working with in New York, their classrooms are really small. And so they have they've set up their desks to be
Ah.
partners. So they have like I'm thinking of Jenny specifically, she has like donut and sprinkles and they're taped to their desk. So if you're a sprinkle, you have to find a donut, whether it be across from you or beside you. So you could do it that way too.
Okay.
I
I think
also
I
have a
know.
couple kids, oh, sorry, that pull up like chairs like around the perimeter of my carpet. So they're still like partners, they're still within our learning space, but I have some kids that just prefer to sit in a chair. And then, or if you have kids with like body space issues, then just pulling them up around the perimeter of the carpet might work. And I change out my partners every month. And that seems to work. So they know like when the calendar switches, it's exciting because they're like, our partner's changing too. And that seems to have worked.
Yeah,
I
that's really
really like the chair thing because I have a couple of kids that don't like to sit on the carpet.
Mhm.
It's uncomfortable for them. And so I
Yeah.
really like the chair thing too.
Right.
Yeah. And it kind of, I mean, I have 24, and if they're all sitting on the carpet, like it's tight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a
Um,
great suggestion, Erica. Thanks.
I think I know what carpet you're talking about. We do carpet spots around our carpet. So like I have the Velcro dots around the carpet and years we've had 24 and I've done that. So like then if I need to move somebody onto the carpet or even away from the carpet, it helps. But that way they have shoulder partners usually too.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. And even like those little carpet squares. Did somebody say that? Like just having the carpet squares, you could have a couple of those and they're all around the perimeter too, you know. Yeah. Anyone else? Jessica, you're in classrooms. Do you see anything the teachers do that?
A lot of the flexible seating, like you talked about having kids off the carpet, but having their own space. Some of them, yeah, in chairs. A lot of different call and responses. Some teachers do like, I have one teacher who does one and then she does a second one to kind of get everybody really focused.
Mhm.
And if they don't, she'll go back to the first one to be like, I said something. And she's one of the quietest, most patient teachers, which is funny. And like her kids really respond to that.
Yeah.
So sometimes doing that double gets their attention.
Yeah.
But yeah, our 3 through 5 uses the curriculum by Anita Archer. So
Yeah.
yeah, you see a lot of opportunities to respond.
It just makes sense when you think about it, you know. But that's not how we went to school, right? We went to school sitting and listening and taking it in and not being active participants in our own learning. So
Our like whole school building goal this year is for students to be able to like articulate our learning target and like steps that they're going to have to do to be successful. So, like our admin comes in and does walkthroughs and like talks to the kids about what we're learning and how are you going to know if you're successful. So, at the kindergarten level, we sing like a little song every day before we start each lesson. And then we talk about like what we're learning and like them singing the song. And after we're done singing, we do like clap, clap, elbow tap, ready to learn. And
love that.
I tell them, okay, lock it in. So they all go and they have to lock in like what our target is. And then I pick like an announcer. So I used to like voluntarily kids that had their hands raised, but now they're all really good at like locking it in. So I'll just like pull stick and then they have to stand up and I'm like they're the announcer and then they repeat like what our learning target is and then we all clap for the announcer. So that's just something fun too, like they're anticipating like are they going to be able to be the announcer for that lesson, and it all gets them involved in what we're learning.
Mhm.
Is that for every subject that you do then? Like,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, every whole group lesson. So we just sing like, what are we learning? What are we learning? What are we learning today? Clap, clap, elbow tap, ready to learn. And then I'll state the target and then they have to repeat me.
what example is a target? So,
So we'll say like we are learning short A. Like I just keep it very simple. And then as we go through the lesson, we talk about the short A sound. When we spell the words, the A's in the middle. So that when they're practicing independently or with partners, like they know those are the things that I'm looking for and that they're learning.
oh, I love that. Thank you.
We'll have to add that to it. So it's clap, clap, elbow tap. Then what was the last part?
Then we go ready to learn and our
Ready
hands
to
are
learn.
like in our lap. Yeah.
I love that.
I love
Yeah.
that. That is so awesome. Clap, clap,
Oh, thank
elbow
you.
tap,
Ready
ready
to
to
learn. Yeah.
learn. Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Don't mind like my sick voice. Sorry. Like
So many teachers get sick on breaks. It's like, okay, Mav, I can relax. And then you're just like,
yeah, but
and
then
now
I'm
I'm
like, you're like, man.
anything else? I'm doing a little series this week. I'm doing one today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. Today is just all about like moving from sound to sound, reading to like being able to read more words more fluently and building automaticity. So that's going to actually be in this room in about 15 minutes. If you want to stick around for that. And it's only like 30 minutes. So it'll be from, what is it, 10? It'll be from like 11 to 11:30. And that's just giving a little extra. I just wanted to do something because I feel like this time of the break is like, okay, what do we do? And I don't know about you all, but I was really intentional and present until about yesterday. And then I was like, I have to do something. And so then I thought, well, why not just do some little like micro learning clinics for the next couple of days? So that's going to be my plan if you guys would like to stick around. If not, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your break.
Thank you so much, Amy. That was
Thanks, Amy.
awesome.
Yes.
And I loved everybody's ideas and I can't wait to incorporate them. Tap, tap, elbow clap.
Ready
Ready
to learn.
Ready
Yeah.
to learn. Ready to learn. Ready to learn. Ready to learn. Okay.
Okay.
I'm ready to
you have
learn.
15 minutes then, Amy.
Huh?
I'll see you in 15 minutes. Do I just say
Yeah,
that?
you can just stay. I'm just gonna mute. I'm gonna run up and grab my breakfast because I didn't eat before.
Okay, cool. Me
And
too.
then I have to
Okay.
come back down.
Oh,
Yeah.
Me too. All right.
right.
Join
Wait a
us
little
at
while.
15.
See you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Later, Gators.
See ya.
Amy, are you going to put it in the hub?
Yes, I've decided starting this year, everything, any free webinar that I do, just the recording automatically is just going to go in the hub.
Okay. And then if we want to come, today, tomorrow,
Today,
I don't even know what
tomorrow,
date it is.
and Wednesday.
Tomorrow's
Today, tomorrow, and
Monday?
Tuesday, all at 11. Yeah.
Okay. And then same link.
Same link, coaching call link.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye, guys.